We're live. I can't believe this. Amazing. We're live, so we have to be careful what we say now because so many other people will be joining us. Yay, I'm getting applause. Okay, so we begin with this evening. First, we welcome those who are watching us from, well, I was going to say from home, obviously, but they're watching us from some other platform. So we welcome you and thank you for following us all. And now I invite Sophia to lead us into a song. Thank you, Marco. That was obviously Marco, not Sophia. I apologize. Now I invite Sister Lorena to continue with the evening as planned.
So, hi to everybody. Can you hear me? Yes, it's okay. So I'm really glad to share with you my experience. There are many friends, brothers and sisters between you. I'm an helper sister. Maybe you know Sister Milena in Matera. I am of the same race, and also Sister Barbara in Lucerne.
Yeah, I will say hello to her.
Okay, we are 5 in all the world and 3 in Livingstone, so it's okay. Now I live in Cosenza, in south of Italy, and I work as a mathematics teacher in prison. And last year I proposed a project to the inmates, and I have to say that this project was born in my heart in face of the tabernacle in Beata Anna chapels in Madrid during the These meeting. So for me, it's also really beautiful to share with you this experience because it was born during Livingstone's experience. I share with you my PowerPoint. My connection this evening is not so good, so I hope that we can do this testimony. Maybe sometimes on one slide I will speak a lot, so you can use your button to look at me or what you want. Now I present a little bit what I will say, sharing my presentation. Okay. I will try to answer to these 2 questions. Even if I won't say an answer, but I will leave to you or find to look for your answers. Is art a place through which to meet and transform the violence acted or suffered? The second one, can the beauty of art awaken a desire to repent and change one's life? This is the place where I work, and it's a wonderful place for me. It's my cathedral. And it's a little prison. The capacity is between 150 to 100 inmates. Being a prison of passage, it welcomes prisoners with short penalties of maximum 4 or 5 years, or with long penalty, but they are waiting for a definitive sentence. As you can imagine, the crimes are the most varied: theft, robbery, drug dealing, murder, multiple fraud, national and international drug trafficking, and there are also a big section of sex offenders. Most of them come from the mafia underworld, so they come from Calabria, from Naples, Apulia, and also Sicily. There are also many foreigners from Romania and Albania that normally are narco traffickers or some illegal Africans. So as you can imagine, it's not the good context to propose, to plan a project, because there are many people who enter and exit. So it was not so easy, but I tried to propose them. I will say something about the violence that I see in this prison. Of course, in all prisons there are violence, different forms of violence. The first one that I see is that everyone shouts. Prisoners and jail assistants, they use a loud tone of voice to speak with the other. And the problem is also that the school is between the infirmary and also the interview area. So they shout to call everybody to send the inmates to the interviews with the lawyers or families, or to send them to the infirmary or to the work. So this is the first form of violence. The second one is that the prisoners carry with them the violence of the ground of origin, of course. the crimes they have committed and the tearing away from their loved ones. Of course, the distance with their family is a violence for them. They experience very strong conflicts with their women who leave them, taking their children away from them. The third form of violence is that they often suffer violence linked to a punitive regime. When some irregularities occurs, for example, a mobile phone is found in a cell or some drugs, all inmates are punished with the restriction of their freedom. And for security reasons, the most restless and aggressive prisoners are transferred very easily with a 10 minutes notice. So there is no time to say a word, to say goodbye. And for the relationship between them is really strong. Also, this is a reality. They absorb also the violence of those who try to commit suicide. Many cut themselves or try to hang themselves. And they live with prisoners with severe depression and great mental frailty. They often tell me, Prof, you can do the jail, but the problem is who you do it with. So this is the problem. And finally, they have no chance of getting physically tired and committing their minds to other activities. So they go to school, someone, and they don't have other activities. So, for example, they go to the football camp just once in a week. Just some of them work because they have to change for 6 months. Someone works, and the other 6 months someone else take the place. And other important aspect is that they have some physical and sexual needs, of course. In Italy, they can't join their women, so it's a problem for them. And they are forced to vent through the viewing of movies and TV programs. As you can imagine, that's not so edifying at all. Or they try to repress these needs with large quantities of drops to calm themselves. They call these drops champagne. So in this context, there is a great need for beauty, listening, and telling truth, of course, but it's really difficult because they are not usual to do it. So, and there is another situation, another consideration. They think normally that the persons are divided in two categories, bad and good, or failed and successful people, black or white. So I desired to show them that in each one of us there are some light, some shadows, and not only darkness, not only lights. So I thought to Caravaggio and also Fabrizio De André, who is an Italian singer. They lived, of course, in two periods completely different, but they have many things in common. So I thought about a project, and I proposed to them to follow me in this adventure after the school. So we were alone to do this. So the project, I introduced them the two artists, and I explained a little bit the reason for this project. And I clarified what I was asking for and how we would work. They would have to put themselves on the line, and we would have to create a space where everyone could express themselves without being judged, without judge, of course. So after I show them some of Caravaggio's works, a big picture in format A3, and I asked them to start choosing the ones they preferred and motivate their choices. So I wanted to listen before. When I did this proposition, the first meeting, when someone says something interesting, we compare ourselves on that considerations, and the discussion was open. Of course, I tried to complement and supplement their reflections, and it was really beautiful because little by little they started to take a space, more silence to listen the others, because at the beginning it was a really chaos. They spoke all together. But when I add some considerations, they were reflecting a little bit and they fall in silence. And I had the impression that they were acquiring a taste for feeling a bit critical of art. And also a big consideration for me is that they could remark, come si dice? To note many details that really leave me speechless, because without knowing nothing about Caravaggio or gospel or other subjects, etc., they really touch the center of the works. It was wonderful. Now I will try to show you just the picture that I used. I choose this picture thinking to their situations, so you can laugh maybe. So with these images, we started to comment and to share something. And finally, we covered these topics, these subjects. First one, the destiny. And the question was, does my destiny depend on anyone, on the seduction of interest, earnings, things, and people? Does it depend on who I meet or what I choose, or on God? Because for them, the problem, their destiny is always outside because of the other. So it was a subject. And I chose these two images, the fortune teller. They underline the different way to look at the other. So a seductive way to look, or an innocent way. It was really interesting. The second one was this picture. We laugh a lot about this because everybody could have an history to tell. The second one was love and beauty. It's a painful theme for them. Between appearances, illusions, deceptions, and truth, what should the ideal woman look like? What am I looking at and what am I looking for? I use these images in this image to show them, to compare two different beauty, the external beauty and the interior, the inner beauty. And it was also interesting because someone of them underlined that there was a little light in the glass, in the darkness, and this beautiful Mary with this little flower, a white flower, and this light on his face. So it was interesting. I leave you to imagine all the comments about the women, so I go on. The second picture that I used was the Madonna of the Pilgrims, just to say them that the model used by Caravaggio is a prostitute. I don't speak about the song of Fabrizio De André, but we do the path together with Caravaggio and Fabrizio De André. But now it's too much longer to say something about this. The third theme was the value to very simple and humble people. Can we look at people's heart and what they are, or do we stop at appearance and prejudice? And I use this image, the crucifixion of St. Peter, and again this image. The first theme was, what value do we place on the truth? This was an important subject for them. And I used in particular this painting. The fifth subject was, it is possible to change my life and to cut with the past. Of course, I used the calling of St. Matthew. And it was really interesting because everybody said that each step of Matthew that is represented here around the table was a step of their lives. And they recognize themselves in each Matthew around the table. Not all, but many. And about the project, I can say that we start with 9 inmates, but after 4 transfers and passage to domicile and 3 defections, due to the difficulty to speak about himself in front of the others, just 2 arrived till the end of the project. An Italian man that was an unbeliever, and an Algerian, a Muslim. So perfect to do this project. I kept the idea of bringing a group of adolescents to meet the inmates. And I asked to the directrice of the school and also the director of the prison to bring with me 18 adolescents. It was all okay, but one day before, the directrice told me, no, there is another meeting in the school, really important. So finally, just to save the project, I bring with me 6 adolescents. But it was the ideal number to permit the dialogue between them. And the encounter was really touched. This is one of a reflection that the Muslim man shared with the youngest. The meeting was organized in 2 steps. The first one, the Italian student explained to them the pictures, the painting of Caravaggio, with the style, Livingstone styles. And it was really amazing because he studied a lot, day and night. He was so excited to show him like a teacher. It was really big. And the Muslim that was quite 60 years old, so also with a wisdom of the life, he lived some, I can say, an inheritance to the adolescent, and his reflections was very, very strong. Here you can say, you can read, just as all trees are touched by the winds, as it passes, it can either bend or break, so all men are touched by evil. There are those who only bend, and there are those who break. The second sentence, what really matters is knowing how much evil we have done and how much love we have given. I am different today, and to what I have been, I say enough. There are many other things that he told, but I took just this. This was the little group of adolescents outside with their teachers. They were really great also. With a big maturity, they put some questions to the inmates, and a big dialogue between them was born, really. And there was also a jail assistant that was present, and he said, a day, a morning like this, pay me all the life as worker in a so dark place. So for me also it was a way to listen in a different way this experience. So what did I get with this project? I tried to say you something. First one, this project allowed to the inmates to get out of oneself through two ways, focusing on Caravaggio's biography and on his questions, and two, immersing oneself in other people's life situations, those of the characters depicted in the work of art, of course. So the second fruit, they try to carve out times of silence and listening to their inner movements. It was a really amazing moment for me to do this experience. The project was during 15 weeks, so you can imagine it was really long, 1 hour per week. So for 15 weeks, I could observe a change in their way to stay together also. They accept to confront with the others without prevaricating, without having to convince or tear the reason. I have to say that still the 13th meeting, they were 4 or 5. Just at the end, some of them go away. And they try to tell themselves the truth to be able to give it back to the others, their companions, but also to the students. My final consideration, what can I say about this experience? For me, the project has inserted the inmates in a doorway experience, a bit like what happens at the gates of the temple, or as it happens along a pilgrimage. The doorway asks to find a new place, to relocate yourself. It's not an obligatory passage, but it's a possibility of novelty. In front of many closed doors and gates, finding a door open to other horizon was an important offer. For me, yes, I was really touched because I became aware that they were really like in a doorway, ready maybe to enter in a new room, in a new situation. But sometimes the temptation was to come back. Of course, those who crossed this doorway wanted to start again their lives and got involved not only in the project, but in the desire to look at their own history. And they knew to be accompanied by us, the teachers. I really see a difference with the other students because they went to the lessons all the times, all the days, without any absence. So maybe they felt themselves welcomed and also accepted for what they were. And I have to say also that they try to open their future to others' possibilities. And now I'm following the two in a different way because one exit in December, and then once in month I call him, I try to help him to continue in his decision. He changed life totally. I mean, he left his girlfriend, his land, go to live with an uncle. And the second one is in prison, but we are trying to help him to find a job because he doesn't have his family here, but in Algeria. I have to go. I observe also this. The images used were really important to ask, to put questions. So for them to observe, to contemplate some images was a way to exit from themselves. For example, in front of this detail, to put the questions, what would I have done in Matthew's place? Would I get up off the stool? So the images are important as a mediation to do this passage. But I think that the words shared between us have done the work of transformation. A little bit as this dialogue between Martha and Mary, where a sort of conversation happens. Also between us, the words that they share were really important because for them maybe was the first times that they put a name to their feelings, to their reflections, and also to listen the other and to feel, to be accepted. So the words for me could transform really. For me, it's also a reflection, so really important because when we use the words during a visit, for example, I'm really aware that these words can leave little things in their lives. But of course, the more our words mature from dialogue with the word, with the big W, and the more they resemble it, they become effective. For all the 5 months, I needed to stay in dialogue with the Lord, speaking with him about these inmates, their history, and also I had the impression that the Muslim men did the same. Sometimes during the mathematics lessons, he spoke with me about the project, of course, and about his life. And sometimes they starting to speak looking at the wall in front of them. And I had really the impression that it was talking with God, not with me. The third fruit, it's also that they had the need to announce what they experienced. It's wonderful to see this fruit, not only because they wanted really happy to share with the adolescent in that morning, but also because after 2 weeks maybe, or 3, I don't know, the Muslim man told me, Prof, now without math, I have to tell you my history and you write it. So finally, I wrote a book with him, a mix between the explanation of this project and his history. And now I'm looking for an editor because some friends have read this book and they say that it's good. So maybe I will publish this book. But the really important thing is that he felt the necessity to tell his history. So he told me the history, I wrote some notes, he read it because he didn't speak, he doesn't speak Italian, he speaks Calabrian with Arab, French, and some words in Italian. So for me it was really an hard work to understand and to put all the name or the words in the right side. But also the Italian man felt the same necessity, because when I come back in September at school after the summer, he gave me his book that he has written during the summer. And really, I was touched because maybe he needed to work more this path that we have done together. So this is a little bit my consideration, and I leave to you to give the answers to the questions of the beginning. I hope that my English was not so bad. And now I leave the word to Giulia, or I don't know.
Thank you, Marco, and thank you, Sr Lorena. That was very, very insightful and moving. And actually, the last part that you propose, to mature in the dialogue through the word, is exactly what we would like to do now. So the more we mature in our encounter with the word, the more we start to resemble it, and the more effective what we say becomes. And so we thought of proposing a text, a biblical text, with all of you, which we hope could be a bridge even for tomorrow's experience with this virtual tour that we have proposed to you. And Sr Lorena has chosen this text from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 14, verse 1 to 12. We will read it in two languages, in Italian and in Spanish. There will also be the English version written, but if you prefer to also refer to one in your own language, of course, you may do so. Of course, I should mention that Sister Lorena used the images of Caravaggio to reflect with the inmates, and of course, one of the centerpieces of the church in Malta that tomorrow most of you will be also visiting virtually is, of course, the beheading of St. John that Sister Lorena also used in connection with the truth, What is the truth? How do you speak about the truth? So that tomorrow it will be almost also like a continuation of what you have heard this evening. So thank you for making that subconscious link for tomorrow. So now we have some time to meditate on these two proposed texts.
In quel tempo al tetrarca Erode giunse notizia della fama di Gesù. Egli disse ai suoi cortigiani: «Costui è Giovanni il Battista, è risorto dai morti e per questo ha il potere di fare prodigi». Erode infatti aveva arrestato Giovanni e lo aveva fatto incatenare e gettare in prigione a causa di Erodiade, moglie di suo fratello Filippo. Giovanni infatti gli diceva: «Non ti è lecito tenerla con te». Erode, benché volesse farlo morire, ebbe paura della folla, perché lo considerava un profeta. Quando fu il compleanno di Erode, la figlia di Erodiade danzò in pubblico e piacque tanto Erode che egli le promise con giuramento di darle quello che avesse chiesto. Ella, istigata da sua madre, disse: «Dammi qui su un vassoio la testa di Giovanni il Battista». Il re si rattristò, ma a motivo del giuramento e dei commensali ordinò che ne venisse data e mandò a decapitare Giovanni nella prigione. La sua testa venne portata su un vassoio, fu data alla fanciulla e lei la portò a sua madre. I suoi discepoli si presentarono a prendere il cadavere, lo seppellirono e andarono a informare Gesù.
En aquel tiempo oyó el tetrarca Herodes lo que se contaba de Jesús, y dijo a sus cortesanos: «Este es Juan el Bautista, que ha resucitado de entre los muertos, y por eso las fuerzas milagrosas actúan en él». Es que Herodes había mandado prender a Juan y lo había metido en la cárcel encadenado, por motivo de Herodías, mujer de su hermano Filipo, porque Juan Le decía que no le era lícito vivir con ella. Querían mandarlo matar, pero tuvo miedo de la gente que lo tenía por profeta. El día del cumpleaños de Herodes, la hija de Herodías danzó delante de todos, y le gustó tanto a Herodes que juró darle lo que pidiera. Ella, instigada por su madre, le dijo: «Dame ahora mismo en una bandeja la cabeza de Juan el Bautista». El rey lo sintió, pero por el juramento y los invitados ordenó que se la dieran y mandó decapitar a Juan en la cárcel. Trajeron la cabeza en una bandeja, se la entregaron a la joven y ella se la llevó a su madre. Sus discípulos recogieron el cadáver, lo enterraron y fueron a contárselo a Jesús.
So for this moment of prayer, we have read this text from the Gospels according to St. Matthew, and there is a scene described, but I want to give you some points also using this painting. And here we have another situation, I mean, a detail that we can imagine, but they are not described in the text. But here we find many elements that are present also in the text. First of all, this detail. We see here the killer's arm with strength push St. John's head. This vertical element show the violence on him, but this violence can help us to think about the violence that we can find also in the text that are not so named, but is present. I give you just some suggestions. The power, the imprisonment, enchainment, envy, seduction, revenge, instigation, pride, and murder. So first point, we can contemplate in the text of Gospel all forms of violence that we see, that we can image, looking at the different persons, the dancing, the laughing around the table of the guests, and so on. The second point, I invite you to contemplate also this rope. It's another vertical element that maybe it was the rope where St. John the Baptist was attached. But if in the first detail we can see this strength from the heaven, I say, still the ground, so a descending movement. Here, this rope showed to us a sort of movement who elevate Saint John to the heaven. It's a symbol maybe of his link, his dialogue with the Lord. In the text, Saint John is not present, but we know that he is in prison. And we can imagine his prayer, his dialogue with the Lord, maybe his questions about his choices. And we see here another kind of strength, the strength of the faith in God. And this faith produces other way to stay in the world. The honesty, the frankness, the truth, based on faith in God. Of course, also this detail is not told in the text. We see just the fruit of this killing. His head is brought to Herod. But here we can say an innocent lamb. He dies in silence, without words. We can say that in the text, Saint John is really present, even if we don't see him. So he's a present, but at the same time his absence, because he doesn't have the possibility to say a word to defend himself. So there is just his silence. So we can contemplate also this position of Saint John the Baptist. After the dialogue with God, we see his presence without words, that reminds us to Jesus, of course. So in front of these three images, which position do I occupy in this situation? I can take this position. I serve the cowards, or I shut myself away in despair. Maybe the first girl on the left is Salome, but here we see the servant of the power. Faced to the violence, maybe we choose this position. We prefer to serve the power. Another choice that I can do is to stay in the shadows, to hide myself in the shadows. I don't want to see or hear. Normally, it's really easy to choose this position. In front of the violence, I prefer don't know, don't see, don't hear. So I'm not called to say something in front of this violence. And I can choose also the third position as these two men. I look, I listen, I wonder, maybe I'm terrorized. I let myself be questioned by the darkness of my fears. Yes, maybe I can feel very strongly the fear who live in myself, but I can choose also to let myself be questioned in front of violence that I see. So there are these three solutions, I can say, in front of violence. As grace, we ask, Lord, help me to become aware of my normal position faced with violence, and help me to listen to your call. So you take your time to stay with the gospel, of course, but these three images, these 3 points can help you also to contemplate, to image what you read and what you see between the lines written, and ask this grace, because we need to become aware of our normal position faced to the violence, because we have to put the questions to ourselves. But overall, I ask to listen the call, the Lord's call for me. Amen.
Thank you for that. It's true, in silence, it might also be in silence that we utter, we speak the most powerful messages, no? And this idea of the presence, but without words, which might lead us to ask the question, but where are you? We don't hear, we don't see, so where are you? And with this in mind, I invite Sophia. I will not say what this song is. It's very self-explanatory, but maybe then after I will allow Sophia to explain in her own words where this song comes from.
I would like to share with you some things about this song, because as we know, we can understand better things when we know the story behind that. Well, last year, Jean-Paul asked me to write a song for this camp. So I've been all this year thinking and praying about that, because the issue of the camp is difficult for being a song. So all this year I thought, oh wow, a song about violence, how I write a song in English, because actually, well, English is not my language. I can speak enough for understanding between us, but it's difficult to write a song. So, and several times the Holy Spirit has also the microphone mute, and I couldn't hear the inspiration. So, well, finally I get it, and the song is here. I get it 2 days ago. So after 1 whole year. Music is very, very simple. Also the text, because of the language, as I said. And about that, I reflect a little bit. And sometimes I thought it could be, it would be better if I wrote in Spanish or Italian. But then I remind the beauty of the simple things. And also I thought about the limits. In this case, the limits of the language. I thought how this is part also of the violence. The violence speak to us also about our own limits. Well, so this song is not just a music and a test, is also my own limit put there. And I think in some way the limits of every one of us. So the idea of this song is to be a prayer, a reflect of these moments we don't see God. It's like a violence, a quiet violence, because there are a lot of kind of violence. I thought the first thing I thought in all this process of writing the song was every moment in which some people say to me that God is not real because of the evil of the world, because of the bad things of the world. So, well, yeah, I think all of us will listen this sometime. God is not real because there are a lot of bad things in this world. So, well, and I think it's enough. I hope this help you for understanding and for feel a little bit more this song. Now, all of you can see the text in the screen, but I invite you to close your eyes. The text is very, very simple. I'm sorry about my pronunciation, but it's very, very simple. I think you will understand. Yeah, so if you want, you can close your eyes and just feel. Where are you? I don't see you. I ask to my heart, but I can't feel. Where are you? In the middle of this battle, in the middle of this world, when I see all this violence and many people suffering alone, when I am falling, when I can't move, when all my wounds are open and there is no more hope. Where are you? I don't see you. I just to my heart, but I can't feel. Where are you? But there you are, even when it hurts, when everything is dark, you're the only ray of sun. You are my gravity that keeps me in the trance of life, the last light in my heart, the last everlasting sight. Here you are. You are in me. I am your hands. I am your peace. I will be your silence. I will be your light. I will be your voice. I will be your hands. I will be your silence. I will be your light. I will be your voice. I will be your hands. Here you are. You are in me. I am your hands. I am your peace.
Sophia, that was beautiful. I think all agree if they were all to speak together. So thank you for that. Very powerful. And there are many methods to pray, and music is one of them, poetry as well, art as well. And speaking of method, I now invite Father Chris to take us through another method that we can use, especially to engage with or dialogue with the Word of God, which was proposed in the text, explained to us by Sister Lorena. So thank you all again for participating in this wonderful virtual meeting online.
Well, first of all, yes, I agree with Julia. Poetry and music is a very powerful way of praying. I myself sometimes feel like inclined to write a poem or two. So, and yeah, I can understand that. So, prayer, when we speak about method of prayer, I'm a bit uncomfortable with the word method, because prayer is not a scientific experiment which you do in a lab. There you need a method to follow. You know, you need you have a procedure which you have to follow word by word. But prayer is an encounter. Prayer is a meeting. Is meeting someone. So, and when you're meeting someone, then you're not following a procedure. You're actually, if you want to really meet that other person, you pay attention to that other person. So, so this is the premise, which is important, because otherwise, if we don't understand it in this context, Ignatius's indications on what helps you to encounter God may seem like a bit too rigid and a bit too, you know, how to say, like almost, you know, compulsive, like a one which is compulsive obsessive. But actually, Ignatius's indications help us to make prayer an encounter. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. And what does Ignatius tell us about prayer? Well, usually, well, it doesn't have to be Ignatius. How would we usually start our time of prayer? Isn't it with the sign of the cross? And many times we just do the sign of the cross without thinking, you know, twice about what we're doing. But we are naming God. We are saying that we are going to do this in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The Jews, they never pronounce the name of God. When you find the name of God in the Bible, in the Old Testament, the Jews, instead of pronouncing that name, they say the Lord. Depending on the translation of your Bible, sometimes, if it is an English translation, sometimes instead of writing the name of God, you have the Lord written in all caps, which to remind you that it's the original word in Hebrew is actually the name of God. This out of utter respect, utter reverence towards God, towards the person you are going to meet. So when you start with the sign of the cross, be a bit more respectful, have a bit more reverence in doing it. Being more attentive at the names that you're pronouncing, the names of your God. Then, many times it happens to us, it happens to me, and I think I'm not so special with this respect, that we are in the presence of someone, but we are elsewhere. We are not present to that person. Our minds are elsewhere. You know, we have other thoughts, and the other person is speaking and talking to us, and maybe sharing important things with us, and we are not being attentive. Am I alone in this, or does it happen to you too? Okay, so, well, so there are some things which help us to be present to the other person. And the first thing that we need to do is be present to our own selves. So Ignatius gives us one big hint in this. Well, more than one, but I will stop at one here because otherwise we stay here till midnight. Just one. He tells us that after doing the sign of the cross and familiarizing ourselves with the text we're going to pray on, we compose ourselves seeing the place. Seems strange as an indication, but actually it's a very, very helpful hint. You compose yourself seeing the place. What place is he talking about? Well, there are a few suggestions here, which I'll go through them, what place it is. But first, we are bodily creatures. We have a body and we are in a place. At the moment, we are each of us in his own room or whatever, in his own house, etc. And being so your mind and your body need to be in the same place. Bringing them together sometimes can be a struggle. So being present to yourself is the first thing that helps us to be present to God. Because the only person that can meet God is the real me. Not the ideal me, not what others wish me to be, but the real me in my state, at the state in which I find myself now, here and now. So, composing myself, seeing the place. This can take different forms. I will suggest three of them. The first one is actually becoming aware of the place where you are. You know, becoming aware that you're sitting on that particular chair, becoming aware of your surroundings. Ground yourself. We have expressions now saying his head is in the clouds, like so ground yourself. Land. It can actually help to become aware physically of the pressure that your feet are doing on the ground. So this is one way, becoming aware of where you are, the place where you physically are at the moment. That's one way. The second way, which I find can be very helpful sometimes in certain situations, is to think of an imaginary place this time around. Your inner place where you are. That is, sometimes we're not fully aware of where we are on a spiritual level. Where am I at the moment spiritually? Sometimes we may be at peace. Sometimes we may be troubled. We may be lost. We may be feeling like confused, or we have a decision to make, or we can be passing through different things, but we're not always fully aware of what is happening. So one way which can help is imagining that you are in your inner room, the one in your heart, your inner room, and imagine it. What is there in this room, and use some symbolism to help you. So if you're feeling like all your life is being shaken at the moment, imagine that your room, is being shaken. Your room is like cracked walls and and things like that. If at the moment you feel like you have too many things which are sort of competing for your attention, imagine your room in disorder with a lot of things all over the place. If on the other hand you feel like you're in darkness, you feel like your mind is cloudy, don't know where you're going, etc. Okay, imagine a dark room, etc. This can help us to become aware of the state of our spiritual self. This is the second way. The third way, which might be more suitable for this kind of passage, which Sr Lorena has invited us to pray on, is to imagine the place where the passage is, where the story in the passage that we are praying on is happening. So in this case, we may imagine being at Herod's party, or imagine ourselves being in the dungeon where John is being beheaded. So composing oneself, seeing the place. So this part has like two parts. The first one is becoming present to yourself, and the second part is becoming present to God. In that same place, be it the physical place where you are, be it your inner room, or be it the place where you're contemplating the place of the passage, imagine that there as well there is God who is meeting you. So let him in. Okay, so dedicate a few minutes, some moments to become more present to yourself and to God. These are not the only ways of doing this. Okay, there are other things which can help, and these indications which Ignatius gives are not the only ones that he gives. But well, we have to limit ourselves somewhere, so I'll stop at that. Then there's a second step which Ignatius always suggests, and which Sr Lorena has invited us as well. I'm sure you have heard about this. We ask for what we wish and desire. Usually simply simplify it, the grace to ask. But Ignatius is more specific. You ask for what you wish and desire. If there's something in man, in human beings, that moves us, it's desire. You desire something, and you do something so that your desire becomes true, becomes reality. Obviously, there are desires and desires. Some desires are not real desires, I wish to go skydiving someday, but I never actually went to see how much it costs and what it takes. So, well, it's not a real desire. It's like, one of these wishful thinking, but it's not a real desire. Now, when it is a real desire, it moves you. So the second way of becoming present to self and to enter into dialogue with God is becoming aware, where is my desire? So the grace to ask can be the one that Sr Lorena invited us to ask. But if it is that, it must be coming from inside. Okay, you don't simply ask it because Sr Lorena invited us to do it. Okay, it has to come from inside. So after you come in the presence of the Lord, after you are in the presence of the Lord, you stop, try to dig into your desire drawer. What is there in your desire drawer? Try to look at the important ones and then transform that into a prayer. Ask for a grace. See what you wish to ask the Lord. Okay? You may start by the grace that Sr Lorena invited us to ask. Okay, trying to see if that is one of the things that I wish to ask the Lord. But if you cannot connect with that desire, with that grace, then ask whatever is in your heart. Okay. These indications, these way of entering prayer usually can be of great help to transform our time of prayer into a real encounter with God. So those are the indications on how to enter prayer. Then, while imagining, as Sr Lorena told us to do, when looking at the people that are in the passage, I invite you to look in a specific way. Ignatius tells us, well, look at the people, see listen to what they say, observe what they do. But there are different ways of doing this. Many times, we are very quick to judge people. Because he's like that, because he's doing this, because of that. Other times we are trying simply to be their psychologist and trying to say, because he is paranoid or because he is whatever. I invite you to have a totally different attitude, one of utter respect. You are contemplating a person, a human person. So instead of trying immediately to judge the other person, because he's like this and he's doing that and this is wrong and this is bad, or this is right, again, even that is usually when you look and observe with a judgmental attitude, it stops at that. You don't go any further. You don't encounter that real person. So instead of judging the person, I invite you to look at the face of the person in a way, some way, to look at the person as a person with all the complexities and, the ambiguities of being a person. So with an utter respect, we said that we should enter prayer with a bit more reverence towards God, and we should contemplate persons also with a bit more respect. Okay. I believe that before being able to love anyone, we need to be able to respect them, to have this contemplative look that looks at the other person as a person. So I invite you to do that. Then obviously, well, interact with the scene, look at the different things that Sr Lorena invited us to do. And finally, when your time of prayer is coming to a close, bring all of those things that came up during prayer, be it a new awareness, be it whatever it was, a question, etc., in front of the Lord and speak to him as a friend speaks to a friend. And be ready to listen. Be ready to listen. And to listen, sometimes you need to be silent. Not sometimes. If you're not silent, you cannot listen. So, yeah, I invite you to, even in this time of prayer, of conversation with the Lord, don't hesitate to stay in front of him in his presence without saying anything. When we are in the company of someone we don't know, that moment of silence usually is awkward. No, isn't it true? You're in the presence of someone you don't know, and the moment when you have said what you have to say, and the person has said what she has to say, and now what? And usually you find an excuse to move on, to leave or whatnot. With the Lord, but with the person that you are comfortable with, you can spend hours being in silence together without being uncomfortable, saying nothing. So in front of the Lord, knowing how much he loves us, we can stay put, stay silent. And sometimes that silence can be the occasion for the Lord to touch us, to speak to us in any way. So these are my suggestions for today. So start with a more respectful, a more sign of the cross, more reverence while praying the sign of the cross. Be ready for, look at prayer as an encounter. So compose yourself while seeing the place, be it the physical place where you are, the place of your inner room in a symbolic way, or the place where the passage is happening, the passage we are praying on. Then imagine God being present there as well. Then open your desires drawer and transform your desire into a prayer. Ask for what you wish and desire. And then start contemplating the scene using your imagination, but looking at the people with respect. And at the end of your prayer, do some time of conversation with the Lord, leaving some time for silence if you feel the need of it. And then end your time of prayer with some prayer of your choice, be it an Our Father or something else. Those are my suggestions for today. I hope that they help you to be more prayerful in your time this evening or tomorrow morning. So, yeah.
Thank you, Father Chris. I will break the silence so it won't be awkward. So, but actually the evening concludes with this moment. And as Father Chris just said, there is a lot of time until we actually meet again now online. So you have either this evening or tomorrow morning, if you're too tired now, to try and go over maybe the prayer that was suggested by Sister Lorena. Remember, also make a memory of what you heard today, even during the formation sessions, during your sharing group, in order, in a way, to also prepare yourself then for this virtual tour. So in a way, you will already arrive quite prepared, no? So we will meet again online, of course, at 3 tomorrow. You will all receive between this evening and tomorrow morning a link. It depends on your language. Well, English, Italian, or Spanish, unfortunately. French, sorry, not even Spanish. They call Maltese polyglots, but you know, we're quite limited at the moment with the amount of languages. So you will receive a link and you just click on that and you will join the group for the virtual tour. Following that, so between this will take around, you see the time, it's almost 10. So let's say it will take between 3 and 5, just to be safe, okay? Following that, at 5:30, there are the small sharing groups again, okay? So the groups that you have been up to now meeting with every day. And if it is your first time joining a sharing group, a coordinator will be in touch with you, okay? So you know exactly where to go in order to share and discuss. I will say it here, but your coordinators will remind you, but from this final moment of sharing, we also invite you to try together, you know, with your sharing group, to come up with a prayer, reflecting also on these past 3 days, okay? So where we started, no, with this history, where we are coming from, with our history of violence, with our what we know so far of violence, then today, you know, deepening our understanding of violence, and eventually how what we gained is slowly starting to transform what we think of violence, and also perhaps how we will deal with it, so in the near future. So this is the progression, and in this final moment of sharing, we invite you to try together, come up with a prayer that will be shared with everyone again in our common meeting, which is tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. We are going to meet a bit later than we planned because, you know, to give us time to have something to eat, because apparently we still need to do those things, no? So these are the 3 appointments for tomorrow. So now we just conclude with a benediction, just to send us off for the evening. And I thank you all again for being here. Very, very cooperative, you know. We are around 120 people here today. So thank you also Sr Lorena and Father Chris, and also all the lecturers that I heard only good feedback, so I'm happy with that. So thank you all, and I hope you have the rest of a good evening and a good morning tomorrow as well. All right, so by the way, if you still are confused or don't know what to do, or you still have questions, you can still write to us, okay, on the Secretariat email especially, or with your group coordinator. So please do get in touch if you are feeling lost and in the dark. So I invite Father Chris once again to close the evening for us. Thank you.
Let us pray. Lord, we thank you for all that has happened during this day, and we ask you to let these words of yours go deeper into our hearts and transform us. And the Lord be with you.
And also with your spirit.
And may the Lord bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Our day is over. Go in peace and sleep tight.
Praise be.
Thanks be to God.
Thank you.
Good. Good night to everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye and good night.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Buenas noches.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Notte.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Grazie. Go
Bonne
to
nuit.
sleep.
Bonne nuit.
Mañana.
Ciao.
Gute Nacht.
I'm not sleeping.